Okay, so here's an update to the infrastructure as code demo. We have everything running automated now, so it is a one-button solution, and it is repeatable for as many times as need be. So the same exact infrastructure can be spun up as many times as needed simultaneously, and torn down whenever needed as well. So we're going to start right from scratch. And the way this will work is each new environment will get its own resource group. That resource group will be peered with the sandbox resource group's virtual network. And so we initialize everything from the Springboard VM in the sandbox resource group. And what that allows us to do with the VNet peering is once the VMs are configured and every other asset in the new resource groups are created, the Springboard VM will be able to remote PowerShell into those VMs and configure anything that we need to on them. And we're going to time it as well. We're going to see how well it can make two environments at once. Okay, so clearly, here's my Azure tenant. There are only 3 resource groups here. We're going to make 2 new ones. So here we are on the Springboard VM. 2 different PowerShell consoles. Both have to be authenticated. So all we're defining is local credentials for the VMs, the name of the resource group, the first 2 octets of the IP ranges that the subnet on the resource group will use, and the number of VMs to make. It creates the resource groups first, and then creates the virtual network, and then construct the image for the VMs. The image that's being constructed to use for the VMs is derived from a VHD file in blob storage, which was uploaded after setting up and sysprepping from an on-prem Hyper-V. So it is a customized image. Generating a public IP and configuring the virtual network peer. So at this point, you can see we have both of our new resource groups and our sandbox virtual network has peerings to both of those other resource group virtual networks. Okay, we created the availability set that the VMs will be placed in behind a load balancer, and then in fact created the load balancer. Both scripts are now at the point where they're creating the virtual machines. So Elephant is starting to create its VM assets. Gazelle's a little bit behind it. Look at diagrams quickly while we wait for this. Yeah, this is the basic layout. As many VMs as need be. This will create as many VMs as needed in parallel. So they do their creation simultaneously. All the VMs are put into the availability set. The availability set is configured for the back-end resource for the load balancer. And the load balancer has a probe for service detection and a front-end IP address to be public-facing. Azure will create predictable local IP addresses when dynamically assigned for any subnet. You can predictably code in what your virtual machines are going to be assigned for an IP address. And I'm going to grab the public IP addresses. This is Elephant's, and this is Gazelle's. Notice they are in fact different. Those were dynamically assigned through Azure. They are static, but they're not reserved. These obviously will not connect to anything right now. Just as an aside, while we're waiting for this, these are all on GitHub, public facing. Domain name Lab 20, Savvy University. Notice too the resources belonging to each VM and the VMs themselves were named after the resource group. So it's very easy to see this NIC belongs to VM1 in the Elephant resource group because it's called Elephant VM1 NIC. Elephant load balancer, Elephant availability set. Looks like Elephant has completed its virtual machine creation. So it's moving on to configure the guest OS of all those VMs in the Elephant resource group. So right now it's installing web services on all 3 VMs in parallel. Gazelle has also completed, so now it will start to do the same. And as we get closer to progress completion here, the load balancer will start to detect which of the VMs behind it has web services first. And it will start to display the default IIS page. Both are getting close. We should see IIS pretty soon. I'd like to do the same thing but with Linux and Apache. There's IIS for Elephant. And then once all the web services are installed on each VM, it will inject the custom website. Here's IIS for Gazelle. Elephant is fully complete. There's our website. And there it is. About 13 minutes to identical infrastructures. Which are just a group of web servers hosting a web page behind a load balancer.